and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Jon Noble, COO of IG. How are you, Jon?
I'm very well, Toby. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Thanks. Very good indeed. Listen, interesting times that we're living in, and IG is one of those companies that's done really well through all of this. And congratulations to you, because it's not been easy, and it's not been easy for a company of size and scale to go through some of the things that we've been going through. And we'll come on to all of that. And I think there's a fascinating story between IG and how tech and innovation has driven that business for many years now. But look, most people will know a little bit of the IG story, but give us a little bit of a précis in your background as well, if you'd be so kind to kick us off.
Yeah, of course, happy to. So I'll introduce IG to start with. So IG, global trading firm. We offer a bunch of trading products around the world, predominantly CFDs, but also in the UK we offer spread betting. And then around the world, our trading products are badged up very differently. So in Switzerland, we're a bank. In the US, we run an exchange. And we now run an MTF in Europe selling that offers turbo warrants. The thing that really unifies all of that is that our clients are similar kinds of people all over the world. They tend to be reasonably affluent, they tend to be risk hungry, and they tend to use IG to speculate on global markets with a kind of a portion of their wealth, which they see as very much at the speculative end. We don't get involved in pensions or savings or anything like that. That part of FS, we're very much at the speculative end. So we do all that through a suite of technology products, apps, desktop trading platforms, APIs, all of that stuff predominantly, which we build ourselves. Not all of it, but most of that suite of technology is built by IG. In terms of what I do there, I'm the COO, which means that I look after a range of the things that IG does, but predominantly it's the trading desks, it's the change portfolio, so the things that we're building going forward, it's the operations of the firm, making sure that everything works as it should, and I'm particularly responsible for the growth initiatives in the firm, so that the high growth bits of IG. Historically, I've had two roles in the firm. So I started out as a grad trainee on the trading desk 20 years ago, and have managed to stay at the firm for 20 years, which is unusual. Ended up running trading actually through the financial crisis, which was an experience, and then moved into technology and spent 7 or 8 years as IG's CIO, running the technology function before moving to a COO role.
Fantastic! What a story. So when you're absolutely right. It is unusual to hear that sort of thing, isn't it? Sort of the carriage clock days of 20 years service and seeing someone come through the business like that.
Yeah, I hope it's an Apple Watch these days. I don't want a carriage clock. I have an Apple.
I could say you can put it on the windowsill next to you there. Look. Yeah, we'll decorate it. I'll send you one. But it's been it's an extraordinary story of going through from graduate all the way through the business and seeing that sort of change. And as you say, you've gone through a couple of crises in that sort of time economically. Yeah. What's different this time?
So I mean, I think the thing that's really different this time around is that the sheer scale of how it affects every human on planet Earth, really. And I think FS and tech both have a significant role to play in how they can help the world kind of get through this in a way that's actually, do we end up in a better place with some really, we've fast forwarded through years and years of innovation. I think most companies have done that in a matter of weeks. And that's not only kind of tech innovation, but innovation in kind of thinking about leadership, innovation in thinking about how you motivate and manage teams that are working outside of, what you fully expected them to be doing. And I think it's a fascinating period that if we come out the other side of this and we haven't managed to kind of make things better as a result, I think we've collectively failed as humanity. That's got very deep, hasn't it? Look at that.
Well, yeah. Do you know what? I've been down that philosophical route on a few of these shows over time, and I think it was the very early on in just coming out of lockdown, there was a lot of talk about how we could be better in the planet, and you were hearing about the sort of clear rivers of Venice and all this sort of thing, and then it was just about the first hot weekend afterwards, and I saw Clapham Common absolutely strewn with litter, and I thought this might take a little bit more work to to improve humanity. But certainly as an industry, and certainly as technology, as you rightly say, 2008, the villain of the piece was the FS space. This time it's been universally more robust in terms of how it's been able to to deliver and provide stability. And it's a massive turnaround for over just over a decade to see that. What's driven that? What's been the sort of catalyst for the baddies to become the goodies in this story?
I'm not sure if we're all the way to goodies yet, but I mean, I think that there's a number of things that have fed into that. There are clearly a different set of regulation is in force now than was the case going into 2008, which has meant that the capital held by a bunch of the larger businesses, in particular the systemic businesses, is so robust and so strong that those kind of the chance of those businesses running into the kinds of trouble that they ran into back in the financial crisis is so it's really remote compared to back then. And I think that just has provided confidence across the whole market that the FS industry isn't in the place it was in back in 2008 with big systemic firms being in a vulnerable position. So I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is a fundamental change in the kind of the thoughts that people running big FS firms have about their place in the world. And I think if you look at what FS does now, there is significantly more conversation at the board table, I think, around ESG, around the social impact of what firms do, and around the how firms should behave. It's not always all about the sustainable cash flow as it used to be. There's wider impacts of all big organizations in the world now, and I think those conversations are genuinely happening. And I think firms do have to take into consideration all of society when they're looking at what impact they're having in the world, which I think is different to 2008. I don't think that was the case going into the financial crisis at all.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's that goes across all business. The sort of the social impact has become more and more to the fore over the last decade, for sure. And I think finance has adapted to that and driven some extraordinary initiatives that really help drive that. The other side of things you mentioned there that we're seeing apace is technological and digital innovation. Mm-hmm. You guys have always been very to the forefront of that, I know. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing there and the impact and actually probably importantly the benefits that you've seen from being a tech-driven business over this period.
Yeah, so I mean I'll start with the kind of the internal impact. So we are lucky that we are a tech business. We have 16, 17 offices around the world, but only one of those is an office that we would regularly expect clients to come into, and that's driven by a regulator need for a wet signature on bits of paper to open an account. But predominantly all of our client-facing activities are digitally delivered, or people talking over the phone as well when they'd like to. So we were lucky going into this. We built a business that was able to scale digitally when it needed to. If you look at the internal workings of the firm going into a lockdown back in March, we effectively put the whole firm into work at home on one day globally, and we did have about 12 hours of issues here and there. Nothing that impacted our clients, thank heavens, but some internal bits and bobs and pain. I was really impressed that it was only 12 hours, and most of those were driven actually by our vendors needing to scale up because we weren't the only firm in the world to make that decision on that day or in that week. Yeah. And a number of our kind of vendors around security products and that kind of thing had to scale up really fast. And I was super impressed with how well they did that. And so honestly, after a few hours of pain, the entire firm was working at home, and we've been through periods since then, obviously, with kind of some bits of the world. We've got offices all around the world, and some people have been able to return to our offices. Some have returned and gone out again and gone back into lockdowns. I think one country is now back to its second return to the office, if you like, already. But all of that has been, you know, it's been remarkably pain-free from a technology perspective. The use of the kind of the collaboration tools and effective home working has been absolutely amazing. And our people have done an amazing job of adapting to working at home. And, you know, there's two things that have driven that. I think firstly, if people are engaged and want the business to succeed and know what they're trying to achieve, you know, they adapt really quickly. We all do it. And that, you know, we saw that time and again of teams just adapting their process, adapting how they meet, adapting how they make decisions, and coming up with the kind of new norms really, really quickly. And I think giving people the freedom to allow them to do that was quite important there. And then the second thing was just literally having the technology in place, which meant that people could work from home. And, you know, every single person in IG has always worked for a number of years now, has worked on laptops. We had home working in place before lockdown as a perfectly normal activity for people to do. So the transition was pretty easy for us, and, you know, continues to go well. I've got no concerns at all really around the continued home working. It is interesting which teams do well and which teams don't.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah, because it's
so, in my experience, I mean, some teams we have seen a marked increase in productivity, which, you know, I didn't expect any team to increase its productivity, but we have.
Yeah.
We've seen some teams where that's been the case, really clearly the case, 10-20% increases in productivity.
And how do you measure that?
So it's different by different teams. Some it's really easy, you know, if you're on the end of kind of a incoming customer query flow or something, you know, you can measure within the technology how much work people are able to get through in a day. Some places less so, you know, if you look at kind of software delivery or something like that, we'd actually built into our change portfolio, we built a kind of a 15% delay in the delivery of everything that we were expecting, just expecting life to be hard. And if you look at some teams, they absolutely delivered to the original dates and the original budgets, the products that they were working on before we went into lockdown. Some teams delivered earlier and cheaper than, you know, than we were expecting. Other teams had a significant impact. I think the one thing for me that really stands out is those teams where they have a significant creative output rather than a kind of output that can be done, you know, working on your own or working on a repetitive process. So if you're trying to be creative, I think from talking to a number of my colleagues who work in those kinds of jobs, they found it really tough to
and this is about the collaboration and missing the, you know, as you say, the sort of sticky board sessions and
exactly.
And such,
yeah.
Right?
And you can have as many digital white sticky boards as you like to, you know, and that works, you know, works, but I think it's not quite as effective as actually being able to, you know, to tap someone on the back and say, oh, that's amazing. You know, how do you do that? You know, could we do that like that in this country? So they're the teams that I have, you know, the greatest sympathy with, that, you know, they're battling through, but it's tough.
And so with that, I presume it's just a case of, you know, batten down the hatches and wait for the storm to pass, or are there things there that you can look at to improve productivity? Someone's watching it and saying, and nodding and saying, yeah, I feel the pain. What do you think, you know, not knowing if this is another 6 months or 12 months or 3 months, are there things there that can be done, do you think, that can improve creative teams' productivity?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is really, I think we've all moved through that period of thinking this was going to be a few months and we're all back to normal. And I think once those teams,
I was going for weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe weeks, maybe months. Let's hope it's not decades. So that was the first hurdle. Once those teams kind of realized, no, we're going to have to work like this for 6 months, a year, however long it may be, I think they again were able to adapt how they work, what they do. Working in smaller groups, I think, really helped. I think, you know, trying to have 20 people on a Teams call or on a Zoom call or something, and trying to co-create in a big group digitally is pretty tough. Whereas you may well have had 10, 15, 20 people in a workshop or something that kind of work together on something and then broke into groups and work together and broke into groups. I think that's tougher in this environment. So yeah. I think, you know, giving smaller groups more autonomy to go away and complete a task, I think has been useful. And then look, there are thousands of new products that spin up all over the place, and you know, allowing teams to use the technology that's out there to help them achieve their tasks while all the time, making sure that those tech products go through your normal kind of vendor management and cyber processes, so that once you've onboarded a vendor with a product, it can be widely used amongst teams, but being really careful not to just open the floodgates to absolutely anything that somebody wants to download and stick on a laptop.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because you look at that and you think, right, one of the big issues of institutions has been the sort of flexibility through procurement processes to allow tech innovation to happen. You guys have been very innovative and collaborative with vendors, and has this sped up your procurement process? Have you been able to get things through quicker? Because sometimes you can be talking months and months and months to get a product through that can add real value to it. Has there been ways of circumnavigating that as well?
I mean, thankfully, we were never in the camp of it taking months to get something through. I think that's not really our style. But yes, we have deliberately changed some of our control environment type stuff to facilitate what we need to do now. So, great examples might be, if you look at what our compliance teams used to do, they'd spend a portion of their time looking at kind of gifts and hospitality and that kind of thing, and our salespeople appropriately using hospitality and then that kind of thing. Now clearly that's all gone away, but using your compliance teams to help you navigate how you could onboard a customer more quickly digitally while satisfying all the rules around the world, using them to help you navigate the vendor world, and just kind of using the time that was created in some departments by this change in working method really usefully for those departments that were struggling, I think is something that we've managed to do quite well. Now, all of that goes against the backdrop of our business being phenomenally busy throughout this entire period, and our business is very, very driven by underlying financial market volatility. There's lots and lots of things we do to try and help our customers trade in volatile markets, but fundamentally, when the markets are really busy and roaring around, our customers enjoy trading in that environment. A lot of our customers enjoy trading in volatile markets rather than quiet, dull markets. So what happened back in March was not only we had to adapt our business kind of overnight to working at home and changing the kind of operating model of lots of teams, but we had to do that under more scale of incoming customer trading, incoming new accounts, incoming all the stuff that brings when you scale up your business, really significantly. Some of our account opening teams were seeing 3, 4, 5 times the load that they had ever seen before for short periods back in March, and suddenly they're doing that working from home as well. So that was a challenge. Obviously, you go through periods that are extraordinarily busy and then it calms down. And I think one of the key things that we're doing now is actually going back and doing the lessons learned. Right, what did we do well? What did we do badly? What would we never do again? Where did we adapt? Where didn't we adapt? And I think just taking the time as things do calm down to be reflective about what went well, making sure you capture it and do it again, but also kind of learning the lessons about what didn't go well is really important. And I think it's something that most businesses that I see are getting better and better at is that lessons learned piece after a dramatic period or a change period or something like that. And so I think it's a really important part of what we'll do going forward is kind of look at, wow, in account opening or in trading or technology, what could we have done better, and prioritizing the work that we need to do in order to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes twice in future. And I've seen in particular our technology teams do an amazing job of that. Systems go under immense stress, and we did have a couple of issues throughout the period with capacity, but the speed with which the technology team were able to identify the specific application or the specific thing that was causing capacity issues and either change the code or throw infrastructure at it or solve the problem. That was amazing to see, and it's kind of a habit that just stuck and has stayed with us now in a way that I think is really interesting, and I really hope it stays forever.
Do you think that's that? Look, there's been fair amounts of volatility over the last few years. I mean, I remember walking in over Southwark Bridge with you a couple of times, and it was shortly before, or shortly just after the Brexit vote was one of them, and Trump was another one. We've seen some market movers over recent years in terms of macroeconomics that have left ripples. Do you think that the impact of the huge volatility that we've seen recently economically and socially has set the team up to be able to take those lessons from there and perform so well during this?
Yeah, I do think that is the case, and you will hear teams internally talk about, that was double Trump, that was a double Trump day, or that was a, that kind of thing. And so I think, those very specific events like Brexit and like Trump really helped us understand the kind of the baselines of what we need to be able to cope with, either from a human process perspective or a technology process. All of those baselines were materially changed and moved upwards through this period. And I think the thing that really was different this time around was the length. It carried on and on and on, day after day after day. Trump was an event that drove 2 or 3 days of market volatility. We had months of market volatility as a result of the onset of the initial wave of COVID. And who knows whether that's finished. We don't know what the underlying market volatility will be like going forward. If that there are kind of wide societal expectations around vaccines coming along, or or the ability of governments to deal with either the health issues or the economic issues, and there'll be surprises and bumps along the road, and I'm sure a vaccine or two won't work, and suddenly miracle cure might arrive, and there'll be all kinds of bumps in the road. So I don't see an end to that sustained period of market volatility in the way that I think there is a natural conclusion around an election result, or around a vote of like the Brexit vote. So I think that's the real difference this time around. Now, over the history, markets do go through periods of really high market volatility and much quieter market volatility, and I think we're just in a much busier period right now.
Yeah, and busy is certainly the key to it. I want to touch on that actually, because you've spoken about productivity. The results came out recently, and the show's been very much built around positive stories, and IG have performed incredibly well over the course of this year. And it's to your credit of with all the challenges that you've been speaking about all the way through it as well. So I'm really impressed with that, and I love this phrase that success leaves clues, and things there as you say that you can learn from it, and there's things that go well and things that haven't gone so well. What are some of the key things that you guys have taken out of this? And because how big is the company now?
So it's about 1,800 people all around the world.
All around the world, as you say, yeah. So there's so many different things that will navigate that. 1,800 people, 16, 17 offices all over the world. That isn't easy for an executive team to navigate. You guys have done brilliantly with that. What are some of the things that you can say, do you know what, these are things that we've done particularly well here? Because it won't just be about the right sort of volatility and the right sort of market conditions. You guys have excelled at the same time.
Thank you. That's very kind. So, I think the things that we look back on and think we did do well were clear, concise decision making at the right times. So whether that's about how you treat your people and making sure that people feel safe and protected, whether that's around the market risk decisions that you're making, the technology decisions you're making. I think just making a decision, not being blinded by the storm of data that's coming your way and the potential options. Just make a decision, stick to it, and then communicate it so that everybody understands what you're doing and why you're doing it, and making sure that the executive team all are kind of aligned on those decisions and are able to stick to them and communicate them and explain them, I think has been really, really key to us being able to make sure that everybody knows kind of which way we're going on the topics that really matter. I think the second one that I would point out is allowing your talented people the space to do that going through the organization. So, if everything flows up to an exco or a GLT or a management team, it's just like kind of gunge in the system, and you don't, everything is going to get stuck waiting for those few people to do things. And I think we did a good job of delegating down to through the organization that people could make decisions, they could suggest things, they could change things. And, people responded really, really well and came up with brilliant ideas for how to add capacity or make things better for a customer. And particularly all around the world, where different countries were in very different phases of their response to the health crisis, that's been really powerful. So if you look at, our offices in Hong Kong or Singapore or Japan, through that they were in very different places in terms of what it's just like to live in that country at any given time to what it was like living in London in March, April or May. So just giving the local leader the power to be able to make those decisions while making sure that we understood what everyone was doing when, I think has been really, really useful. And I think that clear communication was key to that as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating you say that, because I've just finished yesterday Reed Hastings' book, No Rules, which talks about a culture of freedom and responsibility at Netflix. Right. And if you look at the sort of key theme around that, it's exactly what you've just been speaking about, giving people the autonomy and the opportunity to act. I know it sounds sort of patronizing, but to act as grown-ups. And when that happens, particularly in tech-driven businesses, great things that usually come from it as well, and how it feeds innovation. And with IG being such a business with innovation, I would say, from my look at it over the years, it's a business with innovation at its core, and I think that's really stood out, which isn't no surprise with what you're talking about there. I want to finish with innovation, because I think it's, as I say, it has been a superpower of IG for a long time. You guys have always been very good at sort of connecting with innovative tech and driving from the front with that. Tell us a little bit of the story around that, from your time as CIO and to what you're seeing now as COO, and why tech's been so good, and how you can help businesses in that sort of space and adapt and pull companies in as you have in the past, and really win from doing that.
Okay, great. So, I think the first thing to say there is that we are helped in that by the fact that our customers are unusually tech savvy. So if you're trading CFDs, which are usually over-the-counter derivatives, you tend to be an early adopter, you tend to be quite technology savvy, you tend to be quite risk hungry. So, fundamentally we have a demand pull from our customers to do cool things, try new things, be innovative. They want new product, they want new trading platforms, they want new tools, they want stuff. And if we're not going to provide them, they'll go to another provider who will. So it really helps when your customers are create that demand pull. I think the second thing that I would say is that we've been, certainly my time in technology and before, we've been very, very careful to try to walk the line correctly between not being on the bleeding edge and, adopting technologies that, might prove 18 months, a year later that, they're not the right answer and they don't work, but also not being, right back in the pack, but be somewhere kind of between the bleeding edge and the pack in terms of your adoption or your trial of new things. And I think that for us has proved to be the right place to be. And, time and again, we've ended up being able to migrate away from kind of legacy type technologies before it's become a real problem for us, because we've been able to see the solution that solves the problem that the legacy technology creates. And I think that's been quite useful for us. I think that mix between in-house build, small techquisition type activity, and getting third parties to build things for you is a really crucial part as well. And I think we've had this style over the years of being very driven by in-house build. We have done the odd kind of techquisition on the side. We've done the odd, external build as well. But the majority of what we've done has been in-house. And I think being in-house allows you the freedom to try things in a way that would be much harder if you were kind of writing a check and paying some external company to do that for you, because you'd be much more critical of the result, I think, when it's measured like that. If you're able to kind of allow a team to, run a hackathon or do various kind of activities that allows them to be creative and to try things, it just doesn't feel quite as big a challenge to achieve. So that's been really useful. And then, but I think, finally, really the key thing is that we do have a kind of machine of technology delivery And I think the thing that frustrates, whenever I talk to our technical people, and especially our innovative technical people, the thing they find most frustrating is spending a lot of emotional and physical energy on an idea and creating a prototype and doing all that type of stuff, and then seeing it go into a vacuum of corporate nothingness, and either never get kind of released into production and never get to customers, or take 3, 4, 5 years to go through various committees to get to a customer. And I think being able to say, for particular products, particular ideas, yeah, we really like that, we're really going to back it, and it's kind of out in the wild, usually in a matter of weeks or months. If we really back an idea, I think is really powerful for building that culture of innovation, because people can see it. And lots of the stuff we built have been commercial failures. Absolutely, we've built widgets and gadgets and all kinds of tech over the years where the commercial impact has been negligible, but the internal kind of engagement as a result of taking an idea, building it, putting it out, trying it with customers has soared. Yeah. And sometimes those two things are weirdly not in sync with each other. You clearly try to have lots of commercial successful technology innovations as well, but even the ones that aren't commercially successful sometimes can be successful from an internal engagement perspective.
Yeah, it goes. I mean, that it absolutely echoes everything I've just been reading over the last couple of weeks with that Reed Hastings book. Again, it's the ability to to learn from and give people the freedom to to take those shots and to take chances and back those things. And I think we've done some work with you product managers over the years, and I think that I think for a product manager to work in an environment like that is just a dream come true, isn't it? And with
absolutely.
The power of the tech team behind it.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously there's not all work is that much fun. You do have to deliver a bunch of products, to meet changing regulation and to do other things as well. But I think having that right balance between innovative, creative type projects and programs, and then the more standard type work is part of the trick of getting it right, I think. You do see firms, I see firms that spend so much time on innovation, they kind of forget their core business, and there's the firms on the other side that, really can't ever find a spare half hour to try and create something new. And I think walking that line is really important. I think it's something IG has done well over the years. I think some of that has been driven by the fact that lots of our leadership over the years have been very technology savvy and technology hungry, and kind of going all the way back through our previous chief executives, they're all very technology savvy, which is it's been a real helpful thing for driving that culture.
It waters down, doesn't it? It trickles down, that sort of stuff. Well, Jon, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing a little bit more about it. And to me, it sounds like there's a whole another piece there about the another show you could talk about the difference of over innovating and finding that right sort of challenge as well. But it's been great to hear about how things have been going. It's been great to hear that sort of story as well, and congratulations on everything that's been going on. For people who are watching at home at the moment, who's useful to reach out to? Who would you love to hear from, and is it good, and how best for them to get in touch with you as well?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm really interested in at the moment is the adoption of new technology by our customers in making their trading decisions. I think that, it's something it's an area that's moving really, really fast, is how do people decide what they're going to do, and getting technological help with their decision making is something that we're really interested in as a firm, and I'm personally very interested in. And I think any kind of firms that are involved in that space, I think it'd be great to hear from, and not just trading decisions, but about how can large-ish firms like IG better adapt to that kind of arms race of technology that's put in people's hands on their iPhone or whatever it might be these days. So companies that help us bridge that gap, I think are really fascinating to get to know. And if you want to get hold of me, it's fairly easy. You can just find me. We're not such a big company that people don't know who I am. There's only 1,800 of us, so just get in touch with us via the help desk, and your message will get to me eventually.
Good man. Well, listen, it's been wonderful hearing that story. Thanks for being so generous with your time and your insight. I've loved every minute of it, and we'll have to have you back and see you soon on the show again. Thanks, Jon.
Thanks, Toby. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to you all for watching. We'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.